Okay, good morning. It's great to resume our Living with Emunah Shir, or our Emunah support group, as we like to put it. We concluded the section we were learning from the Siva Shalom, and so for today, I want to share with you, I want to learn with you, a piece from Mesilas Yesharim, Yesharim Path of the Just, of the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato. This is Perek Chav, it's deep into the Sefer. The Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal was a fascinating individual. We're not going to take the time now to develop who he was. Lived in the 16th, 17th century. He lived in Padua, Italy. And he was a brilliant Talmud Chacham. He was an incredibly righteous and virtuous individual, but he was also somewhat of a Renaissance man. He very much participated in Italian poetry plays, not only attending secular Italian poetry and plays and poetry, but writing it, authoring it himself. He was a great mystic. He was a Makubal. He was actually excommunicated and driven out of Padua for promoting and spreading Kabbalah in a time that there was a lot of skepticism about him. He was really an amazing individual. But his Sefer, Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal's Sefer, is so unbelievable that the Gra of Vilna Gaon is said to have said that he would walk across Europe barefoot in the snow in order to be able to spend a few moments at the Ramchal's feet. That every word in the Sefer is precious. The Sefer is based on a Brisa. The Chazal, Pinchas ben Yair, one of the great rabbis, gave us a 12-step program that if we follow these steps one after another, happens to be 12 steps, that it leads to Ruach HaKodesh, that a person who can conquer Zahirus and Zrizus and all these different attributes, qualities, traits within themselves, they can achieve a level of perfection, or as close to the human being can come to perfection within themselves. So this is very deep into the Sefer. It's Perek Chafaf, it's chapter 21. It's Bedarchei Knias Chasidus. It's how to acquire Chasidus. And the reason we're skipping right to this, we're not studying Mesilas Yesharim. I'm actually doing that with the Cup of Joe on Wednesday mornings. But the reason we're doing this is not to study Mesilas Yesharim, but it's that every week or few weeks we take another section of something that talks about Emunah, because it's reminding us, again, Emunah, Bitachon, Dveikus, these qualities, living life with awareness, knowledge, mindfulness of God's role in our lives, is all about conscientiousness. It's mindfulness. It's reminding ourselves. In fact, that's how the Ramchal actually begins his book. He begins his book by saying something that nobody ever thinks to put at the beginning of a book they want to sell, which is, he says, there's nothing new in my book whatsoever. My book says what you already know, so only buy it if you're going to read it over and over. Wow. If you're going to buy it and read it once and it's going to sit on a shelf and gather dust, don't bother. But the purpose of it is to remain mindful, read it over and over, because it's telling us what we already know, just what we need to be reminded of. And it's a brilliant, incredible Sefer. So this is Bedarchei Knias HaChasidus, how to acquire Chasidus. Chasidus here doesn't mean how to grow long payas and wear shtreimel and how to wear sheitel with a little hat on top of it, or however your imagery of Chasidus. This is not Chasidus as in the students of the Baal Shem and the modern movement of Chasidus. This is Chasidus in the way that our rabbis, Chazal, our tradition uses the word Chasidus, which is piety, to reach the level of the Chassid. The Gemara Chazal talk about the Chasidim Rishonim, the early pious individuals. This is one of the late stages, one of the last steps of this path towards perfection, is to reach the level of being a chassid, to reach the level of this piety with the way with which you interact with the world. It's kind of a life in which you're not encountering temptation and overcoming it, but you've purged from within yourself even the temptation. Right? It's the difference between when you really crave the chocolate cake, but you say, I'm not going to eat it, I shouldn't eat it. Or when you look at chocolate cake and you say, that's poison, I have no interest in that. I would never eat that. I would never put that in my body. So the chassid is the one who's purged from within themselves even that sense of temptation. All right, so here we go. What is the method? What's the path in order to acquire this life of chasidus? How can you get to this level of self-awareness, of mindfulness, this lifestyle of where you're not even tempted? It comes through extensive observation and profound contemplation. When a person thinks about, when a person contemplates the degree of Hashem's greatness, when you think about the cosmos, how vast it is, when you think about the world, how intricate and how detailed it is, when you think about Hashem's absolute perfection, and you think about the enormous gap that exists between His greatness and our lowliness. God is unbelievable. He is everything. And we are pathetic. So when a person realizes that, Yigrom lo she'imale yira ura adam milfanav, you'll be filled with a sense of awe and trembling. You can't help but live with a sense of mindfulness. When you're in the presence of greatness, you're very conscientious about how you look, about what you're saying, about how you appear, about what they're going to think about you, about what you're doing. It's impossible that your mind's going to wander at that moment. It's impossible you're going to do something which is undignified or reflects poorly on you. Because you're so self-aware that you're in the presence of greatness, and the vast gap between you and that greatness that you admire, whatever position of power, whatever accomplished person, whatever person of achievement in an area that you admire, but when you're with them, you're so aware and self-aware. So says the Ramchal that if you want to be able to live with a high degree of self-awareness and self-control and self-discipline, then it's by contemplating that we are always in the presence of Hashem, to feel Him with us all the time, that He's always with us, that He's always watching, that He's always present. Not always present in like a big brother, you're in trouble, I got security cameras on you, Facebook is monitoring you kind of way, but more in a Hashem is your best friend. He's always, you're never alone. He's always by your side. He's living life. He's confronting things with you. You're never ever alone. You're never isolated. You should never feel alone. You always have that support system. But that support system happens to be, you have an audience with the divine. You have an audience with the most powerful. You have an audience with the source of everything. So when you live with a high degree of self-awareness of the vastness, and then you can't help but maintain a self-awareness of what we're doing, how we appear, the impression that we're making, and so on. This notion, by the way, that the Ramchal says, the importance of knowing the difference between us and Hashem is what Rav Pinkus describes what we do at the beginning of davening. We have in our Amidah 19 brachos. 13 middle ones are bakasha, they're requests. 13 middle ones are the essence of tefillah. When we, with great humility and an utter sense of submission and dependence, say, Hashem, if I'm going to have parnasa, I need you. Health of the people I care about, I need you. Nachas for my children, I need you. Shalom bayis, I need you. Justice in the world, I need you. All of the principles, these 13, which the Anshe Knesset Agadol, the men of the Great Assembly, with their tremendous, divinely inspired wisdom, authored and orchestrated for us timelessly. In other words, they knew forever that they would be, no matter where you live and no matter when you live, these 13 things that we ask for are the 13 core things that matter in everyone's life. If you want to know what our rabbis saw as being our priorities, we don't ask for it. None of the 13 brachas are a nicer car or a bigger house. You have Baruch Aleinu is parnasa. Help me provide for myself and provide for my family in a dignified way. But none of them are, can I have honor, a bigger name, give me more likes of followers on Facebook or Twitter. None of the 13 brachas in the middle are things that are insignificant or inconsequential. If you want to know what matters or what our rabbis saw as mattering, as what we should care about, look at those 13 brachos. They are the roadmap to what matters. Atachonin la'adam das. Knowledge. How we can expand our mind, how we can maintain our memory, how we can have knowledge. People with memory loss and dementia and what that bracha means, what we take for granted in our youth about what we remember until you can't remember where you put the keys, or you're around people who you're not sure continue to recognize you. That bracha, atachonin la'adam das, the capacity to maintain memory and knowledge. What a bracha. How much that matters. Hashem, give us hashivenu avinu l'sorasecha, give us the ability to come close to you. Slach lanu avinu. What a request every day. Forgive me. I've neglected you. I've dismissed you. I've disregarded you. I'm pathetic. I claim to love you, and look how much I ignore you. So please forgive me. And the fact that Hashem is willing to grant forgiveness is absolutely incredible. Slach lanu. And go down, I'm not going to take you all 13, but some we connect to. Rifa'inu, everybody connects with. But Baruch Aleinu, no matter what position you are in life, you can't ever take it for granted. It could disappear as quickly as it came. And Baruch Aleinu, Hashem, I don't take it for granted. Thank you. And please maintain it and sustain it and support it. And all of the brachas. Ala tzadikim. I find tremendous inspiration in saying Ala tzadikim. A lot of people don't connect that. Ala tzadikim, Ala chasidim, talking about these righteous people. But that's, to me, it's v'lo nevosh ki b'cha batachnu. I'll never be embarrassed. I'll never be ashamed. I'll never be hesitant. Ki b'cha batachnu. Because Hashem, I put my trust in you. It's in you. I'm saying these 13 brachos. I'm standing in front of you as if there's nothing else in the world. Because yes, I'm going to go to work and I have to go to the doctor and I got to go to the bank and I got to go to this and I got to go to this. But before I go do all that, God, I want to make clear b'cha batachnu, that while I do all that, I know that you're the one who has the keys.
Why is that?
because those are the people who live that life, and I aspire to be counted among them. And the way to be counted among them is to live with a sense of bitachon, to live with a sense of awareness that it's you. Of course, Shema Kolenu, which is the open one, fill in whatever you want. Like my potato kugel come out well, make me not get stuck in traffic, make my, I don't know, let's say it's possible I have a daughter taking a big chem test today, let her do well, let her know all the answers, let her be confident, whatever the case may be. Shema Kolenu is the open one, fill in whatever you want. People think that you can only fill in Shema Kolenu. I try to fill in every bracha. The more you personalize each and every bracha, the more personalized all of the Amidah is. Ritzei, we spoke about yesterday in the Parsha class, because it relates to our Parsha. In our beginning of our Parsha, when Aaron is told, Moshe and Aaron, there's a Yehi Ratzon that's recited at the end of the Kohanim, after they bring the Karbanos, would recite a Yehi Ratzon. Hashem, may it be Ratzui before you. The Karbanos we've just brought, may they be satisfactory, may you accept them positively, may you respond to them positively. Mr. Soloveitchik said that's exactly what the paragraph Ritzei represents for us. V'yishei Yisrael Filasam, bi'ava sekabel baratzon. Hashem, the 13 things I've just asked for, accept them from where they come. I mean them genuinely. Please only do them if they really will be what's right and what's good for me. They are, the Ritzei is the Ritzui. It parallels the Yehi Ratzon that the Kohanim would say after their Korban, that we say, God, all these things I just asked for, please only respond positively to them if they're in fact good for me. Don't just give them to me because I asked. Only give them to me. And please be open to giving them. Please be positive to them. And then we get to Modim. So those are the middle. Those are the 13, right? So the first 3 are Shevach, they're praise. The last 3 are Hoda'ah, they're gratitude. How could you ask what makes somebody more likely to grant what you've asked for than you're saying, and by the way, thank you so much for all the help you've given me before. I don't take it for granted. I don't forget about it. I'm ever mindful of how much you've done for me, and I want to thank you. Modim, Hoda'ah. I make an admission. I admit that I needed you. I admit that I rely on you. Thank you for what you've done for me. Rabbi Penner spoke at Shal Shilus a few weeks ago and described very beautifully that when he says that bracha of Modim, he pauses, he feels his heartbeat in his chest, and he feels his few breaths, and only when he's paused long enough to feel his heart beating in his chest and his breath, does he turn and say, Modim, thank you Hashem, I'm alive. I have a heartbeat, I have breath, I have air in my lungs. And that's what puts him in the mindset of Modim. The last 3 are Hoda'ah. Why am I telling you all of this? Because the first 3 are Shevach. Hashem, you're mighty, you're great, you're all in control, you control the weather, you control life, you control the resurrection of the dead, you're all powerful, you are everything. You're great. Hashem, have I told you look good today? Hashem, have I told you? So why do we do? So Rav Pincus asks, why do we start with Shevach? So the misunderstanding, the easy misconception is, why do I start with Shevach? Because I'm about to give Hashem 13 things I'm going to ask Him. So I say, have I told you how pretty you look today? Listen, my buddies and I want to. Right before you do a big ask, so it's like we're buttering Hashem up because we're about to do 13 big asks. So first we say, God, have I told you how mighty and great you are? So Rav Pincus says that's a total misconception. It's not at all why we're doing it. Do you think Hashem is so shallow that He's going to fall for that? It's a joke. That's ridiculous. So why do we start with Shevach? Says Rav Pincus, because what we're doing is before we can ask Hashem for anything, we remind ourselves why He is the source we're turning to give us those things. The Shevach, the praise of Hashem, is not to position Him to be more likely to answer us. It's to position us to have greater concentration, to be more invested in what we're about to ask. So that's exactly what the Ramchal is saying here, that we need to contemplate Hahercha kabilti mishoar, the gap, the distance that is immeasurable. It is so large. Sheben gedulaso, the vast gap between His greatness, ubein shifluseinu, and our being absolutely, utterly pathetic. We are so temporary. We are so pathetic. And Hashem is just perfection. He's everything. He is infinite, omnipotent, the source of all. And when we think about Hashem's great kindness to us, and His love for the Jewish people, so when you think about the nearness of the just to Him, and the loftiness of the Torah and the mitzvos, and related analysis and studies, Vaday shetislahet bo ahava aza v'yivchar v'yisaveh lidavek bo. The Ramchal here is working off the Rambam in the 2nd chapter of Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, who tells us that when you contemplate Hashem's greatness, when you contemplate the details of the universe, the minutiae, the beauty of Hashem's world, you cannot help but feel a burning love, a desire, a longing to come close to Him, to cling to Him. When you think about just how great, how magnificent, study Hashem's miracles, study Hashem's nature, study the minutiae and intricacies of the universe. Go to Montana, to Glacier National Park, and see the beauty of the world that He's created. Marabu Masecha Hashem, and Vadai, you can't help but v'yivchar v'yis'ava l'davikbo. Say, wow. You know, you have those moments where something happens where you feel, most of the time you walk around and think the universe revolves around me. Yeah. My day, my problems, my successes, my life, what I want, what I need, what I got, what happened to me, the whole world revolves around me. It's just a natural human tendency. It's the human psyche. It just feels like that. We interpret and we filter and we interact with the world through the lens of our lives. That's just the natural world. But once in a while something happens and you realize you make contact with something that's so much bigger than you. Whether you studied history and you realize just how amazing how things happened the way they did, whether you're in some magnificent scenery, you see the world, you see nature, whether something that seemed like a coincidence happened, whatever the case may be, you make contact with the greatness of the world, how much bigger it is than ourselves. In that moment, you think, wow, this world is so much bigger than me. It's incredible. I'm nothing. I'm immeasurable. And I'm just a tiny little dot, a blip in the screen of the whole world. And I want to cling, I want to connect with the one who is the source of that whole world. As it is, Hashem created the world that He's our Father, literally. In other words, it's not just a metaphor that God is our Father. He is our Father. He fathered us. He's our parent. And He loves us like a parent loves a child. Yisorer bo behemshech, it awakens within him the will, hachefetz vatshuka ligmolo keben el aviv. So the more that we act, the more that we rather recognize Hashem as our Father, the more that we as a child want to cling to our Father. The more loving parents are to children.
No, the more we recognize that our parents give us.
No, the more parents are loving to children, the more children reciprocate that love and affection towards parents. And so the more that we feel Hashem's love towards us, that we reflect upon and think about and contemplate and see Hashem as our affectionate and loving Father. That every morning that I wake up is His giving me a kiss on the cheek. That everything that's worked out for me is His hug. That His guiding hand is in my life. The more I feel His love and affection, the more as a child I will want to reciprocate and be driven towards that love towards Him. Now how do you accomplish this, says the Ramchal? How do you accomplish this? How do you get to that point? Thinking about the vast gap between us and Him, thinking about the cosmos and the universe, thinking about just how impressive this world is. How do you get to that point where you realize He's our Father and He loves us and we should love Him? It doesn't happen in a busy life with no space, no margin, no time. It doesn't happen when you're surrounded by noise, that there's no quiet to think. How does it happen? Yizbodeid bechadarav. That word yizbodeid is the word badad, means to be alone. Hin'am levadad yishkon. We're described as a nation that dwells alone. Hisbodeid is to be alone. Hispodidus. Hispodidus is to spend time in meditation, in contemplation, in self-reflection. Says the Ramchal, if you're just running through the rat race of life, if you just have so much noise surrounding you all the time, you will never have a breakthrough to feel these things, which are the very things that will give your life meaning, joy, strength, and support. So you think that by being busy all the time, or you think by having noise all the time, that is what's going to give you meaning, and it's the opposite. If you create no margin and you make no space and you never make quiet to be able to have breakthrough, then you'll never have breakthrough. Hispodidus, Rav Nachman of Breslov made this famous or popular. The idea of designated time every day for Hispodidus. Every day. True followers of Rav Nachman will put aside a minimum of an hour a day. You try doing it for 60 seconds and you'll break out in hives. It's very hard. If you've ever tried it, it's very hard. Turn your phone off, turn everything off, sit alone in a chair with nothing, and just, whether your eyes are open or closed, Hispodidus, you will realize and you will feel that it is very, very challenging. So Reb Nachman and his followers would set aside an hour in the morning, an hour at night. And different than davening. Davening is the formula that we talked about. Hisbodedus is not davening.
Is that like meditation?
It's meditation. It's more. Real Hisbodedus is actually a conversation with Hashem. It's talking to Him. It's talking to yourself about Him. It's talking to Him. It's talking to Him about what's going on in your life.
Is that like a checking in?
It's a checking in. It's filling Him in. It's like you're calling a parent. It's like you're calling a best friend. It's like you're having coffee with someone. You're telling him, here's what's going on. Here's what I'm grateful for. Here's what I need your help with. I want to talk to you. Here's what I need to work on. Here's what, right? It's Hisbodedus. So whether you can do it in the Hasidic or mystical sense, or whether it's just a matter of slowing down life, slowing down your pace of life, Hisbodedus is critical. You need space to have this breakthrough. It's only in silence that breakthrough happens. V'nei vadai she'yazreil ezarov ha'asmada va'iyun v'mizurei David. Well, the other thing that will help, he says, the Ramchal, is Tehillim. Mizmorei David alav hashalom va'izbonun bam b'ma'amareim v'inyanam ki biyosam kulam malayam ava v'yira v'chol minei chasidus hinei be'izbonun bam lo yimana mehezorer bo hisorerus gadol latzeis be'ikvosav alaleches b'drachav. So he says, David HaMelech lived an incredible life. David HaMelech lived doing Nach Yomi. So we went through Shmuel Aleph, Shmuel Beis, now Malachim Aleph, and it has David HaMelech's life. David HaMelech's life, we think of David HaMelech with beautiful women and a harp and a powerful kingdom and a mighty warrior, but you read about his life, and whatever challenges you have in your life, I'm going to guess they don't live up to David's. His father-in-law tried to kill him. His wife was disloyal to him. He had the whole episode with Bathsheba, and Achet, God himself said, I'm disappointed in you. He had a son and a daughter, and then another son who killed his brother. He had rebellion within his kingdom, within his own family. He had rebellion within his own officers and cabinet. He had his whole life. He's running, he's on the run, he's hiding, he's squashing rebellion, the division of the kingdoms. It's just, his whole life was filled with challenges. Yes, it had glory. Yes, it had high moments. But he never says, why is me, woe is me, and where is God? He turns and uses it to propel him to get closer to God, closer to Hashem. So says the Ramchal, implanted within Tehillim are the highs and the lows, the joys and the successes and the challenges and the suffering. Whatever your experience, the totality of human experience and human emotion is contained within Tehillim. You have to find that perek, you have to find that outpouring of poetry and prose of David, and you will be able to connect with it and to connect through his words. So that too is an important. Kibios, as we said, we're filled with that. The third thing is to read the stories, biographies of righteous people. We talked about this before. Tal Ben Shachar said it, the happiness expert at Harvard, when he was here and spoke at the shul, that if you want to be motivated, you want to grow, and the same is true if you want to be motivated and grow in your relationship with Hashem, the number one thing to read is not self-help books. The number one thing to read is biographies. I'm reading right now a great biography of the Kloisenberger Rebbe Zatzal. The Kloisenberger Rebbe. But biographies, there's great men, there's great women. We have no shortage of them throughout our history. You read biographies of these people, whether we feel we can ever measure up to them or not, but they inspire. They set the standard. They push us. Yeah. So reading biographies or hearing their stories. If I was reminding me tonight, the Yom HaShoah program, 7 o'clock. We have a wonderful 97-year-old survivor, a very special man who's going to share his story. And when you hear people, their challenges, their travails, who can forget last year, Mr. Judovitz, when I asked him, how did you maintain your faith even after what you went through? He said, I had lost my physical parents. Well, I was going to give up my last father, my last parent. Why would I couldn't live without him. So when you hear the stories of what, in the biographies of these great people, what they overcame, it puts our lives in context, and it gives us strength for what we need to overcome. So the Ramchal has laid out for us, what are the three things to do in order to maintain this Chassidus? How do you get to that level of self-awareness, that level of self-control, that level of mindfulness? Number one, spend time reflecting on God. Understand who He is in the contrast to us, that vast gap. See His magnificent world. Challenge yourself to expand your mind and to understand, and you will crave to get close to Him. Feel He is our Father, and you as a child will want to reciprocate the affection and the love to Him. That only happens, said the Ramchal, with space, quiet, hisbodedus. self-reflection, contemplation. Number 2 was David HaMelech Tehillim, tap into the power of Tehillim. And number 3 is read the stories of Chasidim. Ach mafsidei ha-Chasidus. So those are the things to help you acquire it. What are the things that are obstacles to it, that deter you from it? Amen. Mafsidei ha-Chasidus hem atrados v'hadgaos. You know what hurts you? This is where we're going to get to the hard part. What hurts you, what's an obstacle to achieving it is preoccupation with other matters and worries. Worry, anxiety. When a person's mind is preoccupied and distressed by anxieties and his affairs, you'll never be able to find the space and the quiet to have the breakthrough in these areas. Now, I just want to be clear, we're not talking about somebody who has mental health, diagnosed anxiety. There are real disorders and challenges that need to be treated in a proper way. And the answer to them is not emunah. Learn a book about emunah and it'll go away. That's part of the answer to it, and it's part of the answer to every one of us. But there are serious diagnoses of anxiety and so on that need sometimes medication, that need therapy, that need support. So I want to be very clear in saying that the Ramchal is not suggesting if you have anxiety, it's because you don't have emunah. Read a book about emunah, listen to talks about emunah, and you won't have anxiety. But I'm talking about the people who don't have a diagnosis of anxiety, but they're just Jewish. They just are living in this world that everything makes you anxious. What will work out? Will it work out? What's going to be? What's going to happen? Is everything okay? There's so many moving parts to our lives that there's so much to be anxious about. One can't help but being anxious. So says the Ramchal, he's identified the number one obstacle to a mindful life of piety, of tranquility, of serenity, of meaning, of purpose, of joy, of fulfillment, of satisfaction. The biggest obstacle is being scattered in your brain, is not having the space to sit, to think, to experience, to feel. I was thinking about speaking about it the Shabbos. I don't know if I will or won't, but I'll tell it to you now. So at the end of the Parsha, if I do, you'll forget it by the Shabbos morning. At the end of the Parsha, among the list of non-kosher animals is a sheretz. Sheretz hasharetz al haaretz. The sheretz is the creepy crawly insect, shratzim. A sheretz is an insect, and the Torah describes it not only as being not kosher, but it's also metame. It contaminates. So Rav Biederman brings down, I forgot from which Rebbe, that the reason a sheretz contaminates, the tumah of a sheretz is sheratz. It's always running. Moving, quick. You know what brings tumah into your life? When you're always running. You're on that treadmill, you're running. You can't ever slow down. The Baal Shem Tov used to say, we say in Shema, va'avadatem mehera. Va'avadatem mehera. The pasuk in Shema means that we will quickly be removed from the land as a punishment. But the Baal Shem homiletically described va'avadatem. Our mission is va'avadatem mehera, to destroy the attitude of mehera in our lives, right? That this life, we're always on the run, quick, faster, get it done, more. That mentality, it's killing us. It's killing us. Physically, it's killing us. All kinds of ailments. I once gave a drasha about this in the past that talks about how shallow we're breathing. Who said? You heard on the radio, right? That we're breathing in such a shallow fashion that's hurting us. We're not taking deep breaths. Rabbi Elimelech Goldberg did a whole... Anyone go to that session he gave when he was here on that? He's such an unbelievable person that he's doing a private session with me this afternoon in it. I was away. Where were we? At a wedding? Had to fly somewhere? I missed it. But I mentioned to him the stress of the rabbinate and how many medicines I take a day for different gifts that the rabbinate has given me. And so he said, I got to work with you. I can help you. And he's so nice. I forgot, and he emailed me yesterday. We set up a time. Unbelievable. But we're breathing too shallow. Do you know that there's studies that show that young people, because they spend all their time looking down at a screen, their whole diaphragm is caved in. They're not getting deep breaths. Their lungs, our anatomy, our health, our body, we're not straight. We're tensed up. We're not breathing. Everything. So a sheretz, the tumah in our lives, is the result of sheratz. Running, doing, fast pace. Do we ever stop? Disconnect? We do. We supposedly have Shabbos, but even Shabbos, we're competing, we're running, we're doing, we're serving, we're hosting, you gotta slow down. That's why I take a good nap on Shabbos. Stop running. Thanks to my wife. So v'avartem meira, we have to destroy that attitude, that mentality of the meira. So the biggest obstacle to this contemplative life, the biggest challenge that's stopping us from achieving the lives we're meant to live, the serenity, the peace, the tranquility we're meant to have, is the worry, the anxiety, the pace of life. If you don't make room to contemplate, if you never stop and think, if you can't ever stop and interpret the world, if you can't look at the world, if you can't stop and look at your day and say, wow, look at how that worked out, that was amazing. I feel Hashem in my life, that was so kind of Him, that worked out the way it did. I never thought it was going to. Isn't that amazing? The little things, to identify the little things. But if you don't ever have time, sheretz, if you're a sheretz, sheratz, if you're always running, then how can you achieve chasidus? And even if you have found the capacity to slow down, and you did achieve breakthrough, but if you return to that rate and that pace of life, then all your breakthrough is going to disappear. You're right back to where you were, because you have no time to be in a disciplined way and in a slow way. We'll save the rest of this for next time. But so what we identified was what we're seeking to achieve. The reason we're studying this is, and again, we're not doing this to learn Mesilas Yesharim, we're doing this in our Emunah Shir as our section, our selection of Emunah. He's going to get to Emunah being the antidote, Emunah being the answer, Bitachon being the ingredient to our lives, which gives us the strength to slow down. And it gives us the wherewithal to overcome our anxiety and our stress. It gives us the wherewithal to deal with whatever we have to deal with, so that we can find the margin, the space, the quiet to live the lives that we're meant to live.
It's all about Mitzrayim. Did we not just
Yeah.
get out of Mitzrayim? And that's why we're reminded, as you told us many, many times, reminded every day, all the time, to be conscious and stop the treadmill and create space.
That's Mitzrayim, Meitzar. The Meitzar of Mitzrayim and our Meitzar Krasika. Yeah. And Sfiras HaOmer, this is our time. We're counting. Pesach and Shavuos is every day. We're trying to make progress. We're trying to improve. This is a 49-day challenge. I have certain personal things I took upon myself for these 49 days. A 49-day challenge to see if we can do it. You can't say this is a challenge forever, because forever it's very hard to maintain something. But if you set yourself for 49 days I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Certainly not more than X, Y, and Z. If you take more than 30 things, probably shouldn't take more than one thing. But you take a small thing and you challenge yourself. And to grow in that area. Can I make space? Can I find the quiet? Can I do these things that I've promised myself I'm going to do in a more meaningful way? Be it in our relationships, time with our spouse, with our children, be it in our conversation with Hashem, setting aside time for davening, or the quality of that davening, be it in areas we want to work on, Shmiras HaLashon, Shmiras HaEinayim, whatever it is in life. But that's exactly what this period is supposed to stimulate growth. And it's not a coincidence between, for us, we live in a very seasonal community. We're very lucky. Because after Pesach, things do slow down. It may not feel that way. It may not feel that way. It may not feel that way. No, wait, listen. We're still busy. There's a lot going on. But you know what? I'll tell you this. It's not a coincidence. I think everything is from Hashem. No, it's not. Everything is from Hashem. That we have, Dafka during Sfiras HaOmer, we have the loss of Rabbi Kiva's students, and the morning that there's no simchas right now. Right? Okay, it happens to be, we have some simchas, but whatever, there's not simchas during the period of Sfira. And you know what? That slows things down also. That creates some space, that creates some margin, that creates some quiet. Your next Sunday and your next Shabbos and your next every day is not running to the next Simcha. Because part of this time when we're growing is make the space and use it to grow. Whether the next 49 days you're going to read a little bit every day because there's a book that's going to help you grow, biography that you're committed to conclude by the end of the 49 days, whatever it is. Every 49 days you're going to listen to another shir. Whatever challenge you take upon yourself, but we have those opportunities for it. This is a period of breakthrough. So that when we come to Har Sinai, when we stand together at the base of the mountain, at the end of the 49 days on Shavuos, we are different people on the base of that mountain. We are ready. What is this? We were on the 49th level of Tumah, and we're trying to climb out. What creates Tumah? Sheretz. Slow down. We're slowing life down a little bit so that we can get to the mountain, that when we get there, we're actually really there. Okay, have a great week. See you next week.